General Zixthera of the Hegemony 4th Fleet stared at the tactical display with 3 of her 4 eyes, while the 4th monitored her subordinates' reactions. The holographic battlefield showed what should have been a routine mop-up operation on the human colony of New Gettysburg. Instead, red warning lights pulsed across the projection like an infected wound. General, her aide, Commander Veltar, approached with the distinctive clicking gait of his species. The orbital bombardment was successful. 93% of their defensive installations are neutralized. Our ground forces should encounter minimal resistance. Zixthera's mandibles clicked together, a sign of deep unease that Veltar failed to recognize. She had commanded fleets for over 2 centuries, had conquered 17 species across 42 systems, but she had also been present at the Battle of Proxima Station, where humanity first revealed why they were different from every other species the hegemony had encountered. Commander, what do our xenobiological files say about human physiology? Veltar's eye stalk swiveled to access his neural implant. Standard carbon-based bipeds, General. Average height 1.7 meters, mass approximately 70 kilograms. Relatively fragile bone structure compared to our warriors. Their muscles show moderate fast-twitch fiber density, inferior to Carathian shock troops. Nothing remarkable. Nothing remarkable, Zixthera repeated, her voice carrying a bitter harmonic that made several bridge officers look up. Tell me, Commander, have you ever seen a human fight when they have nothing left to lose? Before Veltar could respond, the first reports began streaming in from the planet's surface. Captain Mordun of the 47th Landing Division was the first to encounter them. His unit had swept through the ruins of New Gettysburg's main settlement, finding only scattered civilians who surrendered immediately. Standard procedure. Then they reached the mining complex on the colony's outskirts. The humans there hadn't surrendered. Mordun's first indication that something was wrong came when his point scout simply vanished. One moment, Trooper Kessel was advancing through the twisted metal corridors of the mining facility. The next, there was only silence on the comm. The second sign was the sound, a low rhythmic thumping that seemed to emanate from the very walls of the complex. It took Mordun several minutes to realize it was the beating of human hearts, amplified through the metal infrastructure by some crude acoustic trick. Then came the psychological warfare. The humans had left messages scrawled on the walls in their own blood, coordinates of hegemony military installations that shouldn't have been known to colonial civilians, personal details about hegemony officers' families, and most disturbing of all, detailed anatomical diagrams showing exactly how to kill each member species of the hegemony alliance. But it was when Mordun's troops finally encountered the humans directly that the real horror began. The first human they found was a female, approximately 60 standard years old according to their files. She should have been cowering, surrendering, begging for mercy like every other species did when faced with inevitable defeat. Instead, she stood in the center of a mining chamber, holding nothing but a piece of twisted metal rebar. She was smiling. "Come on, then," she said in accented Galactic Standard, her voice carrying across the chamber. "Let's dance." Mordun's troops opened fire immediately. The woman moved like liquid lightning, using the mining equipment as cover, the metal rebar in her hands becoming a deadly extension of her will. She shouldn't have been fast enough, strong enough, or smart enough to pose a threat to trained hegemony soldiers in powered armor. She killed 3 of them before they brought her down. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what happened next. As the woman lay dying, she looked directly at Mordun and spoke words that would haunt him for the rest of his unnaturally long life. "You have no idea what you've done. We told you to stay away from our worlds. We warned you what happens when you hurt our families." She died laughing. The reports continued streaming in throughout the day. A human male who used mining charges to collapse a tunnel, burying himself and an entire hegemony squad. Twin siblings who coordinated attacks across multiple levels of the complex. Their tactics showing an intuitive understanding of 3-dimensional warfare that their species supposedly lacked. An elderly human who had somehow fashioned a bow from mining equipment and was using metal fragments as arrows, primitive weapons that shouldn't have been able to penetrate modern armor, but somehow did. General Zixathera watched the casualty reports climb and remembered her first encounter with humans during the Proxima incident. The hegemony had attacked a human research station, expecting easy victory. Instead, they found scientists who turned laboratory equipment into weapons, researchers who used their knowledge of physics to create death traps that decimated landing parties, and civilians who fought with such savage creativity that veteran hegemony warriors suffered psychological breaks. General, Beltar interrupted her thoughts. Perhaps we should commit additional ground forces. The resistance is unexpectedly fierce. Zixthara's four eyes focused on her aide with predatory intensity. Commander, let me explain something about humans that your xenobiological files won't tell you. Every other species we've encountered fights to live. Humans are the only species that fights to die well. She gestured to the tactical display, where red markers indicated human resistance positions scattered throughout the colony. When a Carathian warrior is cornered, they surrender because they value their life above their principles. When a Vegan diplomat faces death, they negotiate because they believe any deal is better than extinction. When a human faces impossible odds, they don't ask how to survive. They ask how many enemies they can take with them. The bridge fell silent except for the constant stream of casualty reports. They've turned an entire mining colony into a death trap, Commander. They're using industrial equipment as weapons, mining tunnels as kill zones, and their own bodies as ammunition. They know they're going to die, and they've decided to make us pay the maximum price for their deaths. Zixthara moved to the communications console. Signal the fleet. Prepare to withdraw from the system. General? Veltar's voice cracked with disbelief. We have overwhelming numerical superiority. Our technology is superior. Victory is assured. Is it? Zixthara pulled up historical files on her personal display. Look at human military history, Commander. Study their wars, their last stands, their victories against impossible odds. The Battle of Thermopylae, the Siege of the Alamo, the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. These aren't just historical events, they're instruction manuals. She paused as another report came in. A group of human children, none older than 15 standard years, had managed to capture a hegemony patrol using nothing but improvised explosives and playground tactics. Every human child grows up learning stories about impossible victories and glorious defeats. They're raised on a mythology that tells them death in battle is preferable to surrender, that sacrifice for others is the highest virtue, and that hopeless causes are worth fighting for. We're not just fighting an enemy, Commander. We're fighting an entire species' death wish. Beltar stared at the tactical display, watching as more red markers appeared. But General, if we withdraw now, the other species will think we're smart, Zixthara cut him off. Because here's what your files also won't tell you. Humans don't just fight to die well. They fight to make sure their deaths have meaning. Every human we kill here will inspire 10 more to join their military. Every atrocity we commit will be remembered for generations. Every victory we achieve will cost us more than we gained. She turned to address the entire bridge crew. Signal all ships. We're leaving the system immediately. And send a message to Hegemony Command. Recommend that New Gettysburg be declared an autonomous zone under hegemony protection. Protection, General? Zixthara's mandibles clicked one final time as she watched the last transport lift off from the colony's surface, carrying the survivors of what should have been an easy conquest. Yes, Commander. Protection, because the galaxy needs to understand something about humans. If you fight them at range, you might win. If you fight them in space, you might survive. But if you face them in close combat, when they can look you in the eyes and grab you with their hands. She paused as the final casualty report came in. 67 humans had held off 3,000 hegemony troops for 8 hours, inflicting casualties at a rate that would have made professional warriors proud. If you face a human in close combat, Commander, you're not fighting a soldier. You're fighting every ancestor who ever refused to kneel, every generation that ever chose death over submission, and every dream they ever had about their children living free. And that's a fight you can never win, even if you kill them all. As the hegemony fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving New Gettysburg behind, General Zixathera made a mental note to herself. Update the tactical database with a new entry. Under Human Combat Effectiveness, she would write simply, avoid close engagement at all costs. Some species fought to live. Humans fought to die free. And that made all the difference in the galaxy.